All right, man, peace. You know, brothers, they say that if you see a person drowning, that you have to be very careful if you try to assist them, because it's the natural inclination of someone who's desperate and trying to strive for their last breaths that they may try to pull you down under the currents with them, and you might drown together. Well, LeBron James fans right now, especially his super fans in the mainstream liberal sports media, they're drowning right now because they're scared to death of what they see is happening in Brooklyn with the Nets. And as most people are who are extremely fearful and insecure, they try to project those insecurities on others. Now they're claiming that the Brooklyn Nets are the ones who are scared of LeBron James, as opposed to just being a responsible organization that is trying to arm themselves with as much talent as possible. But because the mainstream liberal sports media is so desperate to use LeBron James as a pawn to promote utilize LeBron James as a pawn to promote wokeism, they're going to use whatever measures they can to try to cast him as the victim, understanding that he's welcome to playing that role, being a super liberal himself. Please understand that LeBron James has never believed in fighting fair. He's always going to do whatever he feels like he needs to do to gain the advantage, and I have no problems with that. But if you see another team or another organization utilizing those same tactics except better than you, and you're getting out-chessed, sometimes you just have to give it up and understand it is what it is. Now LeBron has become he's become so disconsolate at the prospects of what's going to occur later on this season, because LeBron James is intelligent enough, he's savvy enough, and has a high enough basketball IQ to understand that even Steven, both teams fully healthy, the Lakers most likely are not going to beat the Nets, and LeBron does not have enough belief in himself and his basketball skills to think that he can defeat a fully healthy Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving with a fully healthy him, Anthony Davis, Montrezl Harrell, Schroeder, etc. LeBron does not believe that he himself is as great as he's trying to hype himself up to be. He does not. I don't care what anybody says. LeBron James himself does not believe that he is as great as Michael Jordan, nor does Shannon Sharpe, Nick Wright, or any of these other sycophants who are getting paid by Clutch Sports to push this propaganda. If you brothers get a chance, you should check out Club Shay Shay on YouTube, with Shannon Sharpe, as usual, doing a tremendous job interviewing many of his guests. He recently had on none other than the six-man extraordinaire Jamal Crawford. And when they got to the portion where they were discussing Michael Jordan, there was such a reverential tone by both of those athletes that it was very obvious that Shannon Sharpe is putting on when he claims that he thinks that LeBron James is a greater basketball player than Michael Jordan. Once again, Shannon was going through his spiel where he talks about when he met Michael Jordan, it seemed like he wasn't real, like he was hovering or floating, like he was some type of angelic figure. And he has never described LeBron James in those tones. But either way, LeBron is very desperate. His fan base is very desperate. And LeBron James, at least in my view, has resorted to, certain tactics that people use to get a message out there without having to take the blame for it. In my view, he utilized his son's Instagram account or Twitter account, whichever one it was, to make a statement that he wanted to make sure people were able to receive, to show that these other teams were trying to rig the game against him. Once again, trying to play the age card. I'm in year 18, I'm 36 years old, and these teams are trying to stack up, they're trying to stack the deck to defeat me. When in reality, LeBron James has always been the one who utilized that paradigm to win his championships, trying to stack the deck. Even at times resorting to trying to stop other teams from attaining great players to put himself in the best position to win championships. But they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
36, LeBron James plays 26.
LeBron, he saw it and watch him call it. He's going to call it.
LeBron fade away. Oh, he hit it. Oh, my goodness.
LeBron with the hammer and one.
LeBron with two. That's a clock. And it's
you turn the other way. Logo three for LeBron.
You just have to bow down.
All right. Well, get
Now look at this goofy shit right here. They're claiming that Bronny is the one who put out this tweet or whatever it was. All this to stop a 36-year-old man in year 18. No, this was LeBron James. LeBron went into his son's room, took his phone and said, "Give me your phone." There's no way in the world that this was Bronny. Because Bronny's too busy playing video games and smoking weed and trying to act like he's going to be an NBA star. LeBron went into his son's room, looked at him and said, "Give me your damn phone," and put down the blunt for a second. And Bronny said, "Why? What I do now?" He said, "Just give me your goddamn phone." And Bronny said, "You need my password?" He said, "No, I have a master password." He typed in King James 2021 and logged right into Bronny's Twitter and put out this bullshit talking about all this to stop a 36-year-old man in year 18. This doesn't even sound like something that Bronny would say. This sounds like it was straight out of LeBron's brain. This is not from Bronny.
Bronny James seems to agree with last week's report that the Nets are scared of seeing LeBron in the finals. While talking about Brooklyn's latest signings, Bronny posted on social media saying, quote, "All this to stop a 36-year-old man in year 18.
History has shown that all you have to be is a team that runs great sets and knows how to execute in the half court to stop LeBron James. It doesn't have to be anything superlative or necessarily exceptional. Steph Curry had to be hampered with a bad knee. Andre Iguodala had to have body spasms. Andrew Bogut had to go out with a knee injury. All these things had to happen. Harrison Barnes had to miss every mid-range shot that he took in the finals just for LeBron James to win a championship in Game 7. Bump all that 73-win bullshit. The Cleveland Cavaliers went into that season as the favorites to win the championship. That was not an upset.
Followed by, yes, the yawning emoji.
And then last season in the NBA's Black Lesbians Matter bubble tournament, they had to go 6 games with the 5th seed in the finals.
Shannon, do you agree with this take? How do you feel about it?
Skip, I don't know.
Hell yeah, I agree, Skip. And when LeBron typed that shit last night, I said, good for you, baby. Stand up for yourself. Even though you're hiding behind a fake account, but fuck it. I mean, shit. Desperate time demand desperate measures. We got to make sure that we get this message out early so that when we get swept in June, everybody know that they cheated.
Necessarily scared, but I know they put these teams together to deal with LeBron James because.
So let the record show, whenever a team tries to improve itself and improve its roster, it's just because they're scared of LeBron James and intimidated, and they're quaking at the knees whenever they see him out there on the basketball floor.
2 superstars versus 2 superstars. The likelihood of you beating his team is not very good.
Is that what the record shows? Has LeBron James gotten to the finals with just one other superstar and been able to face another team with 2 superstars? Has that ever happened in his history? When we think about his time period with the Miami Heat, they had 2 superstars and 1 star player. Did they face any other teams with 2 superstars? At any moment. Maybe if you want to say OKC, but would you consider Russell Westbrook at that time a superstar player? I wouldn't. I would consider KD a burgeoning superstar who LeBron was fortunate enough to catch young and also got a gift call in Game 2, or they would have been down 2-0. They faced San Antonio in 2013 and 2014. How many superstars did San Antonio have on that squad? In 2016 and 2015, when they played the Warriors, they only had 1 superstar on the team. And he lost 1 finals. Of course, people are going to say, well, that's because Kyrie and K-Love were out. In 2016, they had everybody, and Golden State still only had 1 superstar, and it took them 7 games down to the last second to win that series. So how many times has LeBron James squared off in the finals against a team with 2 superstars, and he's had another superstar, and he won the series? In 2017, it was him and Kyrie against KD and Steph, and he got his doors blown off. That's just a fact. So people can make up as many excuses as they want. That's a fact. Almost every time that it's been relatively even-steven in the finals, LeBron James has gotten his doors blown off. In 2020, they faced a 5th seed in the finals and lost 2 games. And were it not for, some unbelievably great performances on both ends by Anthony Davis, they could have lost that series.
Let me tell people what actually happened.
Yeah, break it down, basketball historian.
LeBron James did not start the super team. The Lakers and the Celtics in the 80s had the super teams.
They did have super teams. I would agree with that. As well as the Sixers in 83. and to a degree the Pistons in the late 1980s, even though Isaiah Thomas does not want to admit that he was on an unbelievably talented team. The fact of the matter is that the Pistons in the late 1980s could be considered a super team. They had multiple players who had participated in the All-Star game. Joe Dumars, of course Isaiah Thomas, Dennis Rodman, Bill Laimbeer, Mark Aguirre, and before that Adrian Dantley. So they could be considered a super team. It's just that those teams were organically built. The real issue, as Shannon Sharpe is going to get to, is that players are building quote-unquote super teams. This really is not a talking point. The only reason why it's a problem is because, once again, there are certain people in the mainstream liberal sports media who are concerned about making sure that LeBron James is always presented as a victim, as opposed to the architect of this current NBA archetype for building championship teams. So give him credit. But we also can't get upset when Dr. Frankenstein has the monster that he built turn against him.
He did do is that he, a player, says, okay, let's go play together. What he did in 2010, Skip, when he left and went with Chris Bosh and D. Wade. Boston Celtics started this really. Once LeBron James in 2007, as a 22-year-old, ran through the East, beat the bad boy Pistons 2, who had represented the Eastern Conference for the last 3-4 years, Skip, in the NBA Finals.
Well, I have to pause you right there, Shannon Sharpe, because the fact of the matter is that the reason why the Boston Celtics did what they did in the offseason of 2007 was to win championships. They were trying to get a championship. They had a great player in Paul Pierce, who was in the middle of his prime. He was at his peak. I believe he was something like 29 or 30 years old. You also had Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett, who were at the end of their primes, the end of their peaks. So it fit together perfectly. Were they thinking about LeBron James when they came together? No, they were thinking about winning a championship. Because I promise you, they were just as concerned about the Detroit Pistons with Chauncey Billups and Rip Hamilton and Rasheed Wallace as they were about LeBron James. Everybody's world does not revolve around LeBron James like yours does, Shannon Sharpe. And let the record show that the only reason why LeBron James was able to defeat the Detroit Pistons in 2007 is because they'd gotten rid of Ben Wallace.
They knew they couldn't do anything with him. Paul Pierce couldn't see him. The Boston Celtics could not see him. And what did they do in 2008, Skip? They made the trade for KG. They made the trade for Ray Allen.
Well, that was 2007, not 2008. But go ahead.
Brought the big three together in 2008 to stop LeBron James.
No, they brought the big three together to win a championship, Shannon Sharpe. And this happens every offseason in every sport. Teams bring in talent to win.
James said, well, this isn't fair. It's 3 against 1. How do y'all if you're great, Well, you never said Michael Jordan was supposed to beat the big three Celtics, but you expect me to do.
That's a lie. Michael Jordan was the recipient of plenty of criticism throughout the mid to late 1980s as a ball hog, someone who was taking too many shots and did not play a winning style of basketball. The difference is that Michael Jordan was not expected to leave and flee his team and run to another contending team in the Eastern Conference in order to try to win championships. It would have been like if Michael Jordan had left the Bulls and signed with the Knicks in 1988 and then won championships by teaming up with his friend Patrick Ewing. That's pretty much what LeBron James did when he left the Cleveland Cavaliers and signed with the Miami Heat.
So he went and got a team. So what LeBron James did, Skip, is that he empowered the player to say, hey, if teams could put together super teams, bro, if we cool with each other, why can't we? Just like say, hey, bro, we got a good idea. Let's put our money together. We can make it grow. We ain't got to always compete against each other.
Oh, you mean like how Kyrie Irving said that the NBA players should form their own black-owned league? And you said that's a bad idea because you're so busy trying to come together and force this inclusivity and unity with your God, the liberal Caucasian? You mean like that?
Because what had happened, Skip, it used to be who's the best player that's never won a ring? Karl Malone, Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing, all these guys, Elgin Baylor, all these guys' names would come up. Guys got tired of hearing that. So guys said, okay, you diminish my greatness if I don't have a ring. So they said, you know what? Let's go link up. I don't think people were upset that Kyrie and KD got together. It's just when they added James Harden.
Right, well, James Harden requested to be traded to either the Nets or the Sixers. And once he was traded to the Nets, many people thought, including yourself, Shannon Sharpe, and at a certain point, I also thought that it wouldn't work because I viewed them as being three ball-centric players, relatively ball-centric players. KD is someone who can float in pretty much any offensive system. But I did not think that Kyrie and James Harden would fit well together. And I think that part of the reason why they've held KD back for so long is to force this great synergy that we now see between Kyrie and James Harden. Because that was going to be the pairing that would be the most difficult for them to form an affinity for one another, those two. And once that occurred, I believe that the Nets front office said, okay, we're in the position right now to think that we have a real opportunity to win a championship. Because once KD comes back, we know that KD's just going to fit into the flow. So it's really not so much about the Nets being scared of LeBron. It's about LeBron James's fans being fearful that he's not going to be able to win another championship. And LeBron James is fearful of that thing as well.
Skip, I ain't talking about no Blake Griffin. Because Blake Griffin had this to say, it's funny, everybody thought I was washed 2 years ago, but now I'm on the narrative change. No, I'm not.
That's the exact reason why Blake Griffin did not want to sign with the Lakers or team up with LeBron James. Because he knew that he would never get any credit if he won a championship on the Lakers. He knows that he'll get some credit if he wins a championship with the Nets. And he also knew that many people would get upset with him signing with the Nets and would try to change the narrative, which is what, a couple of people are trying to do. Because, really, when we talk about the media changing narratives, we're really talking about 2 or 3 people. Nick Wright, Shannon Sharpe, maybe a Chris Broussard, maybe, and maybe one other person. Because those are the biggest LeBron James fanboys in the media. But the reality of the situation is that the Nets are pretty much just trying to equalize what the Lakers have when they're fully armed. I mean, for the most part, do the Nets have more talent top to bottom than the Lakers? Perceivably, but you never know how they're going to match up when they're out there on the floor together. A fully healthy AD versus a fully healthy KD are pretty much going to nullify one another. So it's going to come down to that combo of James Harden and Kyrie Irving versus LeBron James and Schroeder. And we'll see who wins that matchup.
You still washed. The expectations of you are different.
How you going to say that? You still washed?
Detroit, you were expected to lead a team. Now you're the 4th or 5th option. So you serve perfectly for that role for your talent level. But to make a short story long and a long story short, everybody's gearing up to stop this 36-year-old in year 18 with Anthony Davis. Now we have Andre Drummond. That's why they did what they did. Because you and I both know when it was 2 superstars against 2 superstars, it was Russell Westbrook, KD versus LeBron and Kyrie. KD couldn't see it. KD couldn't see it. 17-5 before he went to the Golden State Warriors. That's what Kevin Durant's record was against LeBron James. If you don't believe me, go look it up.
Well, we also have to understand that KD came into the NBA 4 years after LeBron James did. And he basically was the front piece for an expansion franchise that was trying to sow its roots into the land. They were trying to make their way in OKC. So it's very difficult to determine exactly who was more successful or who has been more successful because their primes have not really linked up other than maybe about a 3-year stretch from around 2013 to 2018, somewhere around there. But even in that stretch, I understand what Shannon is saying because the combination of LeBron and Kyrie just fit together a little bit better than the combination of Russ and KD. And that's the reason why KD left that team, because he realized he was never going to win a championship with Russ. Russ is a great regular season player, but in the postseason, when you have intelligent defenses that know how to use your weaknesses against you, one of Russ's weaknesses is that he's a bad decision maker in the clutch. They're going to capitalize, especially in pivotal moments late in playoff games. So Kyrie is someone who actually ramps up his proficiency levels and optimizes his play in clutch moments. That's why they fit together so well, Kyrie and KD.
2 superstars, KD and West against LeBron and Kyrie. He couldn't see it. He couldn't see him on his best day.
Well, those are only 2 superstars. Only LeBron and KD are superstars out of those 4. But I will say this, there's a reason why when KD teamed up with Steph, that we saw that the results were far different, because now you have two superstars against LeBron and a borderline superstar in Kyrie. And we saw what happened. Because the Golden State Warriors have never had more than two superstars. Klay Thompson is a star player. He's not a superstar. Once again, whenever LeBron is forced to go up against another team and it's relatively even Steven, he gets his doors blown off. And that's always been the case.
And so what he did is that he went with Kyrie. He got James Harden. Got no problem with that. I ain't like I said.
Yes, you do. You have a lot of problems with that.
He talked about no LaMarcus Aldridge and Blake.
Yes, you are. All of you LeBron James fanboys were affected by Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge signing with the Nets. That's why those memes have started the last few days. Because where were those memes when the Nets traded for James Harden a few months ago? They were non-existent. So don't try to act like you're going to poo-poo their acquisition of Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge, because clearly they affected you. That's why you guys were so happy when the Lakers were able to sign Andre Drummond.
The guys now, they're parts. They're parts. They're not important parts. They're parts. You and I both know. But you know why they did it. You know why they did it. They didn't put no super team together to beat Jordan. They didn't put...
Lies. This is something that Shannon Sharpe loves to say, because he's always trying to compare LeBron James to Michael Jordan. Number one, let the record show that full-on NBA free agency did not start until the summer of 1989. By that time, Michael Jordan was already finishing his 5th season in the NBA. Now, player movement did not really become pronounced until the off-season of 1996. And brothers who go back that far in their viewership of the NBA, you'll remember that there were a bevy of superstars who were threatening to leave their teams in the summer of 96. Reggie Miller and Michael Jordan both flirted with signing with the New York Knicks in the off-season of 1996. Both of them did that. And the Houston Rockets, in an attempt to build up their team to face the Chicago Bulls, signed Charles Barkley so that they would have a triumvirate of Hakeem Olajuwon, Charles Barkley, and Clyde Drexler against Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and Dennis Rodman. So the Rockets did try to create a quote-unquote super team to go against Jordan, if you want to cast it that way. In my view, they signed Charles Barkley to try to win a championship. And of course, you have to look at other competitive teams to see what they're doing, because you could potentially face them. But this notion that everyone's scared of LeBron James is just stupid.
Team together, Boston started it. Paul Pierce, KG, and Ray Allen started to try to take a 22-year-old down. Can you imagine somebody putting a team together to beat Zion? They put a team together. That's what an equivalent is right now. Let me take my watch. I can't want to break it. Imagine a team putting a team together of superstars to beat Zion Williamson. That's what they did to do to that man in Cleveland at 22 years of age. If you don't believe it, look it up.
Well, I'm not quite sure if your comparison is accurate, because Zion has yet to do anything in the NBA right now. Maybe if he makes it to the finals, then your attempt at a point or at a theory will be relevant.
Take off.
Your delusion is amusing to me.
I agree, Skip Bayless. Hey, yo, Skip just be giving it to Shannon when it comes to these LeBron topics.
Enjoy watching you and your histrionics as you try to sell this to the billions of blind witnesses out there who are receptive to it.
It's facts.
There's no fact that you just uttered.
Thank you, sir. Nothing but BS and nonsense.
Nothing but presumptuous baloney. That's what it is.
And a lot of paranoia and fear, because most LeBron James fanboys are just like him. They live their life through a prism of entitlement and fear, and trying to project their insecurities on others.
And Bronny, just a kid, and he loves his...
That wasn't Bronny. That was LeBron signing into Bronny's account, typing that bullshit. Because Bronny's never done anything like that before. That was LeBron. LeBron is scared to death.
So I've given him the pass here, but trust me, all they're doing in Brooklyn is trying to win a championship. It's
Thank you, sir.
about LeBron. It's about them. Yeah. Them and them only.
Yeah, okay.
Sean Marks came from the Spurs. He knows only Spurs dynasty, and he said, we've got to recreate a dynasty here, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to pull out every stop to do it, and I'm going to go get Steve Nash to run this show as the coach, and he's a 2-time MVP. So I'm going for star power. And if I can convince Kyrie to come here, maybe he can convince KD to come here, and then they convince James Harden to come, and then the dominoes kept falling because everybody wanted to be in Brooklyn.
When did they do that in San Antonio?
What do you mean? They were a dynasty.
Yeah, they were. But I'm saying, when did they go outside and says, okay, I want the best player over here, and I want the best player over there?
Okay.
Right, but Shannon Sharpe, Skip Bayless's point is that you can't build organic dynasties with the timeline that Sean Marks has. The reason why he signed KD and Kyrie is because they're going to have to microwave a dynasty. They just can't sit back and hope for a Tim Duncan to come in the draft and then go overseas and find a Manu Ginobili or a Tony Parker. So Skip's point is that Sean Marks understands what it takes to build dynasties. Not that every dynasty is going to get built in the same way. When Jerry West was on the Lakers or when Danny Ainge was with the Celtics, those dynasties or those great teams were built organically through the draft. But when they became GMs, they understood that they had to do it in different ways. Same thing with Joe Dumars.
Kept surrounding Duncan Parker and Ginobili, whom they stole in the draft, the second two, not the first one, but the second two, that they did it through the draft more than they did it through free agency.
Right.
Okay, so here's the point. There was a story last week, and it's some trainer who lives out here supposedly, allegedly close to LeBron, and he supposedly, allegedly keeps in close touch with Kyrie, KD, and James Harden, and he's saying they're all scared of LeBron James. That is the biggest bunch of hooey I've ever heard.
Sounds like more clutch sports propaganda.
Trust me, Kevin Durant is not afraid of LeBron James.
Agreed. He has no reason to be. When KD went up against LeBron James, with basically even talent on both sides, KD was able to win 8 out of 9 finals games. And I mean, to give LeBron a break, in 2018, the talent that he was surrounded by was not close to the talent that KD had. But in 2017, the talent was very, very close. No one is going to tell me that Kyrie Irving against Stephen Curry is not comparable, if not a wash. And then when you have Kevin Love against a Draymond Green, no, Kevin Love is not going to bring all the things to the table that Draymond brings in regards to running an offense. But when it comes to rebounding and shot making, Kevin Love makes up for what he might not be able to do in orchestrating an offense. Now, of course, Klay Thompson is a bigger offensive threat than a J.R. Smith, an Iman Shumpert, and a Tristan Thompson. But if you look at Klay Thompson's numbers in the finals, they're not great. I don't even believe he averaged 20 points a game in those 2017 finals. His job was mostly trying to slow down Kyrie Irving on defense.
He had the guts to go join the super team in Golden State that desperately needed him, that got on its knees and cried. You told me that Draymond went in the parking lot crying on the phone, "You've got to come save us."
Right.
And KD said, "Okay, I'm done with Russ. I can't win with Russ, with him as my primary decision maker. I'll do that. I'm going to put you guys over the top against LeBron." And he went into LeBron's house in back-to-back game threes in the NBA Finals and took the game over at LeBron's expense.
Sure did.
Because he did that twice in a row. He won back-to-back Finals MVPs.
Okay.
And in 2018, it was clear that KD was, he was obviously willing to take a step back to allow Stephen Curry to try to win the 2018 Finals MVP. But Curry's game 3 was so poor, and the fact that KD had to take it over in order to win the game, it just showed his supremacy by default over Steph in the finals. Now, when it comes to their overall greatness, to me, it's still disputable when it comes to who's the more impactful player or the more potent player from regular season all the way into the finals. But if we're just talking about the finals, it's not even close.
MVPs, and I just thought he was the best player on the floor, and he emerged as the best player on the planet. And again, maybe when he was a baby, he had fear of LeBron, but he ain't a baby anymore.
I don't think that he ever feared LeBron. I just think that he wasn't ready. There was a maturation process that had to occur with KD.
Kyrie never had any fear of LeBron. In fact, he was the only player who ever just stood up to LeBron and challenged him the moment that LeBron came home. And they clashed repeatedly because Kyrie said, I can do things you can't do, and I'm not going to listen
Except win.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Kyrie's in the lottery every year.
Yeah.
Kyrie got Andrew Wiggins. Kyrie got Anthony Bennett. Kyrie got Deion Waiters. Kyrie got Tristan Thompson.
And
the one thing Kyrie could not do without LeBron was win.
The one thing Kyrie could do that LeBron can't do is close, because Kyrie hit the shot of shots, Game 7 at Oracle.
Let the record show that LeBron James missed the playoffs in his first 2 seasons on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Am I saying that Kyrie Irving is as great a player as LeBron James? Of course not. But if we're talking about skill for skill, it's not really close. Handle, finishing, free throw shooting, long range shooting, mid range, it's not close. Even if we're talking about skills as a passer, Kyrie is a superlative passer. He just doesn't pass as much as he probably could. Now, of course, as an overall player, basketball IQ, stature, and how that impacts his potency on the floor, yeah, LeBron is a greater player, no doubt about it. But if we're talking about skill for skill on offense, it's not that close.
In LeBron.
In favor of Kyrie.
Championship.
And you know what rubbed Kyrie the wrong way?
Yeah.
He hit that shot, and LeBron block got more credit. People talk about the block more than they do the shot. And they rubbed Kyrie the wrong way because he was never going to be bigger than Goat James.
Well, that's more presumption, and that's something that Shannon Sharpe specializes in. And he better be careful with that, because he's going to alienate a lot of these players getting on TV talking crazy like that. Like, bro, pump your brakes. Now, do I believe that Kyrie's jump shot at the end of Game 7 should have gotten a bit more play than it has? Yes. But do I think that Kyrie Irving stayed up at night angry that people don't talk about his jump shot as much as they could or should? No, I don't think that he's concerned about that. I think that Kyrie has always had a ruling class mentality mindset, and that he always wanted his own team. I don't think that the lack of credit that he got for his performance in Game 7 has that much to do with it. We all know how Shannon Sharpe viewed Kyrie before Kyrie was traded, as opposed to how he views him now, or how he's viewed him the last couple of years. Look at Skip Bayless's face. Skip Bayless like, what are you talking about?
Like it rubs Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant said it. If LeBron James is the GOAT, I beat him twice. What does that make me? Even though he won Finals MVP, nobody thought he was better than GOAT James, because he joined a 2-time unanimous MVP. He joined a team that went 73-9.
Okay, and LeBron James joined a team where they had already won a championship, and the best player on that team was the Finals MVP and Dwayne Wade. And everybody knew that the Miami Heat were never going to be LeBron James' team. Everybody knew that.
Kicked his butt when he had him down 3-1. That's what rubbed KD the wrong way.
So all those gullible fools out there who thought the block was better than the shot, it's the most overrated block in the history of blocks. It's
Agreed.
bicycle built for 2, because J.R. Smith undercuts Iguodala, who has to slow down and gather himself, and he can't dunk it anymore because he got cut off at the pass, and he tries to lay it up, and LeBron gets a chance to swoop in for behind, as Iguodala has to slow up thanks to J.R. Smith. It's a big assist. It's 2 on 1.
Game 7,
Okay.
NBA Finals.
Yeah. Okay. Kyrie hit the shot of shots. Nobody could make a shot. Kyrie finally said, I got this. And that was ball game, thanks to Kyrie Irving. And then he said, I'm sick of this guy. I'm sick of his ego. I'm sick of his diva-ness.
His narcissism. I mean, it literally bleeds through the screen. Whenever you watch LeBron James speak to the media, his massive narcissism just bleeds through the damn screen. He really is mentally unhealthy, you can tell.
Sick of his stat padding. I'm out.
Okay, hold on. So I'm going to make sure I'm hearing you correct. Kyrie doesn't have an ego. Kyrie has no diva.
Kyrie has a lot of that. But at least to Kyrie's credit, he said, I'm not going to dwell in an environment where I have to put up with someone who's even more toxic than me. Sometimes you have to recognize your own flaws and be willing to create your own safe space. So kudos to Kyrie for being able to do that.
I'm sure he does, but he
No.
Okay.
You was emphatic
Yep.
that LeBron James is a diva, that LeBron James has an ego. So I want you to be just as emphatic. Don't tell me maybe. Does Kyrie has an ego?
Yeah, it's not as big as LeBron's, but he's
not as big as LeBron.
No. Okay.
So what you're saying is that a person's ego should have a direct correlation to their purported stature or their alleged greatness. So really what you're doing is you're co-signing his narcissism. And that's part of the problem. And that's one of the reasons why LeBron James will never get the quote-unquote credit that he thinks he deserves, is because he's too busy patting himself on the back to allow other people to do so. The fact of the matter is that once LeBron James decided that he was going to initiate the championship winning portion of his career by leaving his original franchise and signing with a team that already had a superstar on it, no one was ever going to give him the credit that he thinks he's going to deserve for much of what he accomplishes over the course of his career. They're just not, and they've seen him flame out too much in big moments.
Well, the point is, do you think he's afraid of LeBron James? No, stop it.
Yeah.
Maybe James Harden, but he hasn't really faced LeBron in any big championship moment.
You remember?
Well, he faced him last year in the playoffs. I thought that James Harden gave up once he saw that they lost a couple of players with the COVID-19 protocols. I think that James was hyped up in game 1 and maybe game 2, but after that, when he saw that they were going to lose players, he realized that they had no chance because they needed all hands on deck just to have an opportunity to win a game by game against the Lakers. James is someone who you can get to quit. That's already been established. But LeBron is the same way. LeBron is someone who you can get to quit.
In Harden last game that he played in against with the Rockets, LeBron James came there and beat the brakes off it. And what did he say? I want out. I just can't do it. I done tried everything I could. I ain't do it. We can't match up against that team, against that guy.
Well, what was he supposed to say? He's out there on the floor with a used-up DeMarcus Cousins and a used-up John Wall. Nobody can win with that team. Those guys were not championship material players when they were fully healthy 6-7 years ago. So certainly not now.
What he did do, Kevin Durant, what did he do? Run to Golden State because he could not see LeBron James.
So when LeBron James ran to Miami, what was that? It was okay when he ran to Miami because he couldn't beat Boston, but it's not okay that KD goes to Golden State because according to you, he couldn't beat LeBron in Cleveland.
Himself, hey, what did Golden State do? Golden State, we got Kevin Durant because they know it's over, guys. We can't do anything with him and Kyrie.
No, I think that what was important about Golden State signing KD is that psychologically, it allowed them to start from step 1. If Golden State had decided to keep Harrison Barnes and not pursue KD, they may have had the overall system and the approach to the game to defeat a LeBron James and maybe just enough talent to get over the hump in a 7-game series. But psychologically, they were whooped. Like what Cleveland did to them in that 7-game series, they would have never been able to get over psychologically. So they needed a great player like KD to come onto their squad so that they could feel like they were restarting from square zero from a mental perspective. That was the real importance of KD, just as much as, if not more than, the phenomenal talent that he is. It's just the confidence that, okay, we're starting fresh. Because had they had that same squad, they would have had enough to maybe beat Cleveland in a 7-game series, but it would have been another 7-gamer. But Cleveland would have had the mental edge.
The team as a symbol right now with Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, Draymond. We can't see them again.
I agree.
And they went loaded up, got KD.
Yeah, because it was Kyrie and LeBron, and obviously Kevin Love.
Yeah.
Okay, so they couldn't hold them off. They had them down 3.
And Cleveland was supposed to win multiple championships with that team. That's why they were the favorites to win a championship heading into the 2014-2015 season and heading into the 2015-2016 season.
But they couldn't hold him off, so they needed Kevin Durant, and he changed life.
Yes.
And he showed that if you place him on a team with adequate talent and a good system, that he can blow LeBron off the damn floor.
Hey, so you think they're now, as they have joined forces in Brooklyn, do you think they're afraid of a Lakers team? And I hate to burst your bubble over this, that won a bubblegum championship last year, because that's what it was. It was just pure bubblegum.
And that's all it was. And that's how it's going to go down in history. You win in a basically an exalted AAU tournament for adults that was sponsored by an LGBTQ organization, and you square off in the finals, quote-unquote finals, against a 5th seed.
Because obviously, as
you understand that had the Clippers won.
What did Jared Dudley say? I'm going to quote him. The great Jared Dudley said about a month ago them boys did not want to be in that bubble, and that was the Clippers. They did not want to be there. They were coming and going and going and coming.
Okay.
And what happened? They were fixated on beating the Lakers, but nobody wanted to be in the bubble. And they never got close as a team. Well, that's a big question because I think a lot of them didn't want to go in the first place.
Agreed.
Yeah.
You'd have to, because there are a lot of guys that opted out. There's a lot of guys that opted out and said, "Nah, I'm good."
So you dodged the Clipper bullet.
No, we didn't dodge the bullet. They didn't fire.
Okay. And then what happened? Here came Miami, the 5th seed. You got to play the 5th seed from the East in the NBA Finals.
Tell the truth, shame the devil, Skip. Go ahead.
And they had just lost Goran Dragic, their leading playoff scorer. And in game 1, they lost Bam, their heart and soul. And you're beating your chest over, oh, I won a championship. Oh, way to go.
But see,
nobody in Brooklyn is afraid of that.
But
nobody.
Agreed.
You didn't say anything about the injuries that Kansas City suffered. All you said is Tampa won the championship. At the end of the day.
That's not true at all. I actually did a video on the segment that you guys did covering the Super Bowl between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Skip Bayless mentioned multiple times that he understands how difficult Pat Mahomes' job was with his offensive line being as debilitated as it was. So let's stop that, Shannon Sharpe.
It doesn't matter. The 2020 NBA champs are the Lakers.
Yeah.
Now, 50 years from now, nobody will remember that it was in the middle of a pandemic.
Not true. That's a lie. Everybody's going to remember that it was in the middle of a pandemic. Now, years from now, when LeBron James is having his basketball accolades listed, he'll be listed as, at the very least, a 4-time champion. But for those of us who watched it, we'll know that it was compromised.
But that's what, Skip, you make it seem like everybody else was under different circumstances what the Lakers were. Everybody had to get tested every day. Everybody was asked to obey protocols every day. Everybody, if something happened, you had to quarantine. So the Lakers were under the same guidelines as everybody else. They won. Give them credit.
Okay.
Right, but Shannon Sharpe, these were certainly independent circumstances that affected people differently psychologically. I give the Lakers credit for being able to transcend a lot of those difficulties. But, I mean, people who are truly astute observers of NBA basketball are never going to view that championship as a real championship, ever.
I'll give you a little credit, but you got to give Brooklyn credit because they're not looking over their shoulder. Their eyes on the prize.
I didn't say they're afraid.
No, actually, you did say that they were afraid. So you're lying.
You be afraid, Skip. If I got 3 guys and I'm going against 2, I like my chances. I like my chances.
Yeah, but it's not.
Well, you guys have Drummond now, so it's 3-on-3.
The 2 in LA. It's just about the 3 in Brooklyn. That's all it's about.
Why you got to get? So Kyrie and KD weren't enough.
Well, I mean, if James says he wants to come, no, shut him out. We don't need him.
Hold on. That's what you.
Right, isn't Shannon Sharpe the same person who was waiting with bated breath when he thought that Kawhi Leonard was going to sign with the Lakers and form a big 3?
LeBron. Everybody say when LeBron says we need this, so when LeBron said we top heavy with just him and Kyrie, you killed him. They not top heavy with Kyrie and KD. You need James Harden. KD want all the damn good players.
No, but LeBron was complaining about being top heavy.
So in other words, as long as you don't complain, as long as you don't make your complaints public, you good with that.
No, well, LeBron is saying we don't have any bench. We're just top heavy as bleep.
I just asked you a simple question. Because now everybody said, well, LeBron is out there recruiting. Sean Marks said that he ran this to James Harden by Kyrie and KD. That's what he said. Now, if it's a lie, he told it. If he gave alternative facts, he did that.
Right, but did KD and Kyrie go to Sean Marks' office and said we want James Harden? Or did Sean Marks approach KD and Kyrie and ask them if it's okay that he trade for James Harden? Because there's a big difference there. For example, Phil Jackson came to Michael Jordan and asked him if it was okay that they signed Dennis Rodman. And Michael said, you can bring him on, Phil, but somebody's going to have to be able to control that guy. And eventually it ended up being Phil Jackson and Michael Jordan who, quote-unquote, controlled or handled him. So there's a big difference between seeking that other player or that other asset as opposed to having the subject broached to you to see if you're going to give your consent.
He said, I ran this by KD and Kyrie.
Okay.
LeBron does it. Oh, LeBron recruiting. LeBron doing all this. What player is on that roster that KD and Kyrie didn't sign up on? Blake Griffin is there because they signed up on it.
Okay.
LaMarcus Aldridge is there because they cut. But LeBron do that. LeBron tried to be GM. LeBron tried to be all this and that.
Well, here's the problem. You LeBron James fanboys have to decide how you want to cast LeBron James, because when the team is bad, you claim that LeBron has nothing to do with the decision making or the personnel. But when the team is good, you want to give him all the credit for acquiring these players, and you also want to claim, see, players do want to play with LeBron. So you guys change the narrative depending on the outcome.
Who got so much to say?
He is.
So what's
He's the coach and the GM.
So what
you
is
don't think they run everything through LeBron?
Kyrie told you Steve Nash wasn't the coach.
Okay.
LeBron has never said that.
Okay.
Kyrie said it.
Okay, but we know who coaches the Lakers.
No.
We do.
See, you see what you did? You talk about what you know as opposed to what somebody told you. You don't know that. That's speculation.
Well, I just watch him. He takes himself in and out of games without even looking at the coach.
Hold on.
Well, he just does.
A man took 2 weeks off and didn't tell the coach that he was taking 2 weeks off.
Okay, all right. You got...
Well, basically, Kyrie has become the Dennis Rodman of the Nets. We know that already. He's someone who has such a high level of skill and superlative talent that they're going to let him make up his own rules, hoping that he won't pull this in the playoffs.
We'll see. Yeah, but when he comes to play, he comes to play.
So LeBron James don't come to play.
Yeah, he does.
Okay.
But he's up there. He's year 18.
Okay.
They're not afraid of that.
Whoa.
Trust me.
I tell you, boy, we all need a wife as loyal as Shannon Sharpe is to LeBron James. God damn.
Afraid. Whoa. All they want to do is do what Brooklyn's going to do.
We're going to do what we do.
Well,
Yeah, lose and make excuses. And by game 3, LeBron will be blaming AD and Schroeder and whoever else he could throw under the bus. If they're down 2 games to 0 and game 3 is not looking good for LeBron, you'll see him quit. And after that game, he'll start blaming everybody but himself.
Get back healthy. Just get back whole.
First thing you got to do is get past the Clippers. That's your biggest problem.
You don't worry about it.
I agree with that. Everybody's trying to build up this Nets versus Lakers thing. The Clippers are not going to be an easy out. I don't give a damn. Dude, watch out for the Clippers.
It's me.
We don't worry about the Clippers.
Okay.
We don't worry about somebody in the base.
Yeah, I agree. You keep talking that shit. We'll see.
There's a reason why.
Keep talking.
Focus on his health first. And
Yeah.
Say, keep talking. We'll see. But anyway, it's very obvious that the LeBron James fanboys are starting to lose their composure. They're very fearful, and they're trying to cover it with bluster. So peace.